Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. I'm super excited about this one. Today, our featured guest is Ben White. He is a sponsorship manager at Textron Offroad. So he is one of the people, he's actually the primary person that makes decisions about sponsorship at Textron Offroad. So you're going to want to pay attention to this. Before we get into the recording with him, though, I want to go through some information about AMSOIL. Now, you've been hearing about AMSOIL now for a little while. They've been a big supporter of the show since May of 2018, and they have brought us into a little bit more of how they think with the Runs on Freedom campaign and some of their partnerships recently with, say, 509, and their strategy towards making the best oil in the world, and a bunch of other supporting lubricants around that. So this all dates back actually to the origins of the company. Back in the 1960s, there was a jet fighter. His name was Al Amatazuo, and he basically said, I don't think that the world of passenger vehicles and motor vehicles should have to deal with conventional oil anymore. He wanted to create a new solution, a synthetic oil, something that he was used to seeing and experiencing with jet fighters. So he set out to create this company and build it, and it's been going strong ever since. Now they're everywhere, all through motorsports, all through power sports, and they come and talk to you through me in this podcast every week. And what AMSOIL and I have agreed to is to give you the best possible chances at building a successful sponsorship program. That's why I do this. That's why they support me. There's also a number of other companies that support that same cause, and they have sponsored this specific episode. We have SolderWeld. They produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopThePodium.com. They're experts in motorsports sponsorship. Bold Racing. They're a family race team. And GSP, XTV, UTV, axle specialists. And they just came out with the new axle, the Revolution, which is really cool. Neverlift Racing. They create comfortable, race-inspired apparel. And then Crash Hack Industries. They provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, NBRP Power Sports, NBRP Exhaust, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and GSP XTV. I would love to get your feedback. It's very important to me, one, to modify the show and tweak the show to match what it is that you need as a listener, but also if you go into iTunes and leave a rating and review there, it does wonders for the show, and that's the way that we're going to be able to continue to bring on amazing guests, is if we can show the feedback in iTunes and we can grow the show. I also want you to subscribe regardless of what podcast platform you use, because that's the easiest and the best way to prevent you from missing upcoming guests. We're going to be releasing the live episode that we just did with Carla and Casey Sims, so that's going to be coming out next. And then beyond that, we are going to continue to give you great stuff week in and week out. Without further ado, let's get to this episode. I'm super pumped today. Ben White is on here. He is the Textron Specialized Vehicles Sponsorship Manager, and I was joking with him a little bit in the pre-interview. You cannot get a better fit as a guest on this show. Like, this is the people, you are the person that these folks want to hear from. So, but I'm done explaining the intro here for you. I want you to take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show. Real happy to be here. So yeah, like you said, I'm the sponsorship manager for Textron Specialized Vehicles. What I focus on primarily is on the Textron off-road side of things, so side-by-sides and ATVs. That's my specialty. So I spend a lot of my time managing our partnerships, existing partnerships that we have, including Robbie Gordon, Kevin Harvick, Tony Stewart, some of those guys. We also have some hunting partnerships, like with the Bone Collectors, Michael Waddell's Bone Collector team, and then also some other ones like Savage Outdoors with Mike Stroff. So that takes up a lot of my time. A lot of other things that I do that some people don't know that I do. I actually do a lot of photo and video work for the brand as well.
Okay.
So Believe it or not, I'm the official drone pilot for all of our photo shoots. So all of the aerial photography and aerial videography you see, that's all me as well. And then I obviously manage the factory off-road race team for Textron Off-Road as well. So that, along with some other public relations communications work too. So that's
awesome.
me.
Well, a couple of notes here. First off, Robbie Gordon and Kevin Harvick, that's big time. So those people are pretty well respected by the listeners of this show, especially Robbie Gordon, because a lot of folks here are in the off-road scene. So, pay a lot of attention to him. That guy's a pretty sharp dude. And then your team had a pretty big year with Vegas to Reno.
Yeah, we had a really successful year, and this was really kind of our kickoff year to race in the Wildcat XX. So we really didn't know what to expect going into this season, but Ray Bullock and the Wildcat Riders team, those guys have just dominated. And I mean, that Vegas to Reno win was just outstanding. Couldn't be more proud of those guys.
Yeah, so I was there. We did not finish the race. I was racing with Bold Racing, Jimmy Moore, and we had a fairly frustrating issue early on about, I don't know, before we hit pit 3, and we couldn't get it resolved in time. So we were so close, but we missed the cutoff for that pit, and we had to drive the rest of the way. But I remember we were watching Ray, and we're like, wow, he's smoking it. And I remember we looked at his car ahead of time, and we're like, this looks, I mean, it was stock length suspension, right? So it wasn't extended arms, which is really tough in Vegas to Reno because the UTVs are going after the trophy trucks, so they can't ride inside the same ruts as the trophy trucks. Where if you have a extended swing arm or wider suspension on your UTV, you can handle that terrain a little bit better. But he did it in the stock suspension. I think that was a big deal. I remember everybody was like blowing up about it in a good way. They're like, man, stock suspension? What's going on here? This is crazy. So that's huge for Textron brand.
Yeah, that was a big win. And there's all sorts of other things too that I don't think people were even realized about that win. One thing I thought was just, I was there as well. I met them at the finish line. One thing that just blew me away, they got out of the car and they were telling me about the race and how they got there. That first off, they didn't start up at the front of the pack. They started third to last.
Wow.
They were chasing and not only did they start at the back of the pack, they lost their GPS within the first 25 miles.
Oh, really?
So they ran that whole race by just chasing dust.
Holy cow.
And so when it got nighttime there, just that alone blew my mind. And that race went on 11 and a half hours and they ran into the night. And so they, to take up a first place win with that, it was just amazing. No mechanical failures. I think they blew one belt. But to not really blow a belt in that race is pretty astonishing. So
wow.
No flat tires, nothing else. Those guys they cranked away. Won by 18 minutes, I think is what it was.
Wow. And I'll tell you what, the tire deal, it is very difficult to not blow a tire there. I don't know if that's very rare. Maybe 1 in 50 doesn't blow a tire. I don't know. That's pretty good too.
Especially at the end. It's a rock garden there at the end.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. So I wanted to call that out. I know that's pretty huge for the brand. Well, cool. That's a great kickoff intro there. I want to use Heat 1 to kind of dive in deeper into your background, some of the things you've done. So let's kind of go through your story, go through your journey. Tell us how you first got into motorsports, and then kind of walk us through how you went from that point to where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd say it first probably started with me with dirt bikes. I got my first dirt bike when I was 11. It was a little Suzuki DRZ 125. We'd mob around in some, cow pastures and rip around in a little green belt that we had in our backyard. And since I got that bike day one, I was hooked. I grew up idolizing guys like Jeremy McGrath and
Mm-hmm.
Brian Deegan, Ricky Carmichael, Bubba Stewart, all those guys. I mean, posters on my wall. I was obsessed with dirt bikes and the outdoors in general. So, off-roading is really, it's in my blood. Both my dad and my uncle grew up racing motocross out in California. My dad always had some reservations about me getting on a bike after, growing up with his friends, seeing them get hurt and sometimes worse while racing. But, I'm real thankful that he was able to put some of those reservations aside and let me ride. So, not to say I didn't have my fair share of accidents, but that's really where it started with me.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, that's something we bring up on the show too, is almost that same story where you said is, you start off and you're riding dirt bikes and you just love it, and then you get hurt or someone else gets hurt and you have to see that and you have to make a decision. Do I continue? Do I not continue? I think that's why the UTV market too has been so strong from a racing standpoint, is it gives people another option if they're not as comfortable with, the open air. They can wrap a cage around them and get some additional comfort.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. With age comes a cage, they say.
Exactly. Exactly. Good. Well, okay. So that's how you got started. What happened next?
So, I mean, like I said, grew up riding dirt bikes, and after high school, followed a lot of my friends to college, just like a lot of other people did. Didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I knew I had ADHD and I couldn't sit still. Mm-hmm. So I ended up getting my major in marketing at Oklahoma State University, and ended up graduating in 2015. In my senior year, I started to think, maybe I should start looking for a job. I didn't really have anything planned out. My good friend and I at the time actually had just closed the doors on an aerial photography company that we started while we were in college. And so I was looking for something that, could keep me somewhere in the aviation industry, actually, is what I was starting to think is what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Believe it or not, both my uncles on my mom's side were retired pilots. My grandfather, he trained fighter pilots in World War II. So, like I said earlier, playing in the dirt was in my blood. Well, I guess also with playing in the skies. So, naturally, when our school had our career fair, I had my eyes set on some of the aviation companies that were there. One of those was Textron. And as you know, Textron not only makes off-road side-by-sides, ATVs, they also make Bell helicopters. They make Cessna planes, just like we had a Cessna 182 Skylane that my friend and I would fly. So long story short, I ended up getting a job offer for Textron's leadership development program. And what that LDP program is, it's a program that consists of 2 one-year rotations at 2 different Textron business units. So I mentioned Bell Helicopter and Cessna Planes. So you could spend a year, say, at Bell Helicopter marketing their choppers. Then you could spend a year at maybe Textron Systems marketing, their missiles and bombs. And then after that rotation, you could repat to one of those business units that you rotated in, or go to a totally new business unit. So basically where that led me was to Textron Specialized Vehicles. I started there in the communications department, and just kind of worked my way through that. When I first started with TSV, they were just getting their feet wet in off-road vehicles. So before TSV was known for what they are now with off-road vehicles, they're mostly known for easy-go golf cars, which we still are, tug, ground support vehicles. So like all those vehicles you see pushing planes around at the airport and tugging around your luggage. That's all Textron Specialized Vehicles work. So I saw what we were getting into in the next few years, and it just reignited that fire that I had to be a part of that off-road industry. So it got me real fired up. So in 2016, we launched our first gas-powered side-by-side, the Stampede, utility-focused side-by-side. And ever since then, I mean, things have just blown up. 2017, we acquired Arctic Cat. And then also launched the Havoc X, which is our sport crossover utility side by side. And in 2018, we launched the Wildcat Double X to the world, which we've been anticipating for a long time, and it's just been progressing ever since. So in those 3 short years, I held several roles communications and marketing, and here I am now doing what I'm doing.
No, that's good. And one thing I wanted to highlight is the rotational program that you talked about. So for people who don't know this of me, I have a day job, and it's what my role is. It's called campus manager at a proving grounds in Michigan, and we bring on new employees. In my campus, a lot of engineers, bringing new engineers, and that's something we've been talking about. Like, gosh, if we had some sort of rotational program, people you can hit the different areas of the business, that'd be fantastic. I know there's a number of companies starting to do that now, so I think it's pretty cool that Textron has that as well.
Yeah, it's a program that we're really proud to have, and like I mentioned, there's so many different business units that Textron has. I mentioned Textron Systems, making those smart weapons and drones. We also have like True, which is our full motion simulator company. I mean, there's the list goes on and on. I mean, if you're not passionate about off-road, or you're maybe more like I was when I was younger, more passionate about aviation, I mean, the opportunities are endless with Textron, and that's really what drew me to this company, was the opportunity that you had outside of just what was right there in front of you at the time.
Right.
So that's what I thought.
Well, cool. Well, I feel like that gives us a pretty good understanding of your background and kind of how you got to where you're at today in your current role. But what are you up to right now? I mean, what are the things that you're really excited about?
Man, it's I'm mostly fired up about the future. There's so many great things that are going on right now and that are going to happen within this industry. I mean, when you look at what the side-by-side market was 8 years ago and what it is today, you'd have to be under a rock to not see what the future has in store for us in this industry. So chances are I'll be crawling over you under that rock on my Wildcat. So
that was pretty good. I like that one. I might have to use that somewhere else in my life, because that was fun. That's a fun quote.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just what we have in store for us is great. So always new products being launched. Being on the inside of everything and getting to see what is next is it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been pretty pumped to see some of the changes that Textron has brought to the Arctic Cat Offroad brand. I've never owned an Arctic Cat side-by-side myself or an ATV, but I've had Arctic Cat snowmobiles pretty much my whole life, and I still have Arctic Cat snowmobile. But at first I was like, oh man, who's this new company? Like, what are they gonna do? What's gonna happen to the Arctic Cat brand? And then I'm seeing these things come out, like these side-by-sides are looking pretty sharp, and then side-by-sides are out there kind of tearing up Vegas to Reno. It might have something figured out here. And I do like the separation of the brands as well, meaning Arctic Cat focused on the snow and Textron on specialized vehicles and off-road. I kind of like that brand separation too, so it's been pretty cool to watch that transformation.
Yeah, it's been really cool to be a part of it. And the story you just told is not one that's uncommon. I mean, when this acquisition, it ruffled feathers. I mean, when you're talking about, I mean, a lot of these guys that ride cats, I mean, even the listeners right now, when you cut them, they bleed green. And so for someone to come in and say, nope, we're changing the name and we're taking things over, and just change in general, I think is naturally is scary for a lot of people. And it was scary to even be a part of it. But I know that when we made the decision to change the name and do this product change, basically, it was backed with a lot of research. Mm-hmm. We went out and did market research before all this happened and said, we went to the consumers, not just in certain areas, but all over the country and world, to see, what equity does Arctic Cat have in the dirt space. And when you go up north to places like Minnesota or to Canada, it's very strong. People mm-hmm. relate to that brand. But when you go down to Texas and to Southern California and you try to sell someone an Arctic Cat ATV, they kind of shake their head and laugh.
Yeah.
I get that. When you look at who Textron Off-Road used to be and our name, Bad Boy Buggies, Bad Boy Off-Road, that's where we came from. And it was an immature name for us. And so we made a strategic decision to take all the dirt products and put them underneath that Textron Offroad name. And one of the reasons behind that was that, when you Google Textron, even if you don't put Textron Offroad, which is technically, our name, if you just type Textron, you're going to pull up a lot of really cool stuff. All that stuff I was talking about earlier with the missiles and the commandos and we make hovercrafts that carry tanks to the shore. It's an impressive company. So we were really trying to leverage that name. And so I think going to give it a couple of years and people are really going to start to adopt it and recognize us as a credible and legitimate company that's, here to stay.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I appreciate you giving some insights around that. A lot of times on this show, I like to pull out the background of why people do things, but it's even better if I can get the background of why companies do things, because as sponsored riders and sponsored racers, that's part of our job too, is to communicate the message of the company and the brand. So if there's a strategic shift in the brand strategy, riders and racers are there to help communicate that. Ray Bullock, perfect example, right? Hey, Ray, we've got a new machine. We think it's capable. Get in it. Make us win, right? So this, and then it happens, and now you've changed, just in that one moment, you've changed the way the brand is viewed amongst, I guess probably the southwestern U.S., maybe even more than that. So the desert racing community is now like, oh yeah, okay. I see. Yeah. You guys are here for real. You're not playing around with Arctic Cat anymore. You're playing. What's this new Textron deal, right? And I think that's very important for riders and racers. If you don't understand your company's branding strategy that you're supporting, just start asking those questions, because I think it's going to make you more effective overall.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Well, I think that was a pretty good background, kind of got us through your journey, where you're at today, what you're excited about. Right now, I'm actually going to take a quick break to thank the sponsors for this podcast. Family Race Team. Those are the first words that come to mind when I think of Bold Racing. And the next one is actually axles. Bold Racing is a premier distributor of GSP XTV axles. And if that wasn't cool enough, they just came out with an entirely new axle called the Revolution axle. It is a hollow tube axle. It's really cool. If you head over to their website, gspxtv.com, or you can find out more at boldracingltd.com, you can find out how this new axle technology works. So they are saying to view this as a fuse for your drivetrain. So the hollow tube CV axle twist technology actually increases the strength and reliability of the axle, and it also reduces stress on the drivetrain. Plus, honestly, it's super cool looking, and if people know me, they know that I really like cool looking stuff. So they come in this really cool gold color. Check it out. It's absolutely revolutionary. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with TopThePodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you gotta check out TopThePodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of TopThePodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to TopThePodium.com. And then The resume, again, is massive, and if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. Look, I'm sorry, but I gotta admit something. I like to look cool. I like to wear high quality clothing. I like it to be comfortable, and I also like it to portray the values that I also hold true to myself. That's why I like Neverlift Racing. So they were founded in 2013, and they are all about high quality, comfort, and looking cool. So, like I said before, exactly what I'm looking for out of clothing. Admittedly, my favorite shirt of all time is the Neverlift Racing silver badge t-shirt. Like, I wear this thing probably too often because way too many pictures of me on social media are wearing this shirt. Either way, they have a ton more out there. So go get your shirt, your hoodie, your hat, and actually your socks. Probably one of the most comfortable pair of socks I've ever owned too. And they got pretty cool things where it says never on one side, lift on the other. Really cool stuff. Get your apparel. Wear something that supports your values. Live fast, drive hard, never lift racing.
What's up, everyone? This is Mike Pasquarella, founder of Desert Vets Racing. When the team goes racing, we always have our SolderWeld products with us. Keeping the cars in the fight is our number one concern. With SolderWeld, we can do that. SolderWeld is a leading company in the U.S. for aluminum repair. They specialize in radiator repair on the fly. If you're stuck in the middle of the trail or a race with a whole new radiator, oil pan, or canister, or even an aluminum line, you can fix it right then and there in a matter of minutes with their AMSOIL aluminum repair rods and flux. It's the only complete and lasting fix in the off-road community. SolderWeld's new UTV off-road kits fit in every ride and are easy to access on the fly.
SolderWeld continues to make a huge positive impact on this industry. So I really encourage you, get in there now. Go to solderweld.us, check out their products, because this stuff is changing the game. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We're now in Heat 2, and that is where we talk about the specific sponsorship tactics and strategies and the things that we hope that you can learn so that you can improve your program and attract and retain sponsors. So first off, probably one of the broadest questions, but maybe the most important of what we're going to talk about today is, for you, Ben, what do you look for in a brand ambassador?
Yeah, well, I look for all sorts of different things. The first thing and personally the most important thing I look for is personality. The industry is built on relationships. So, I look for someone that's well-tempered, communicates his or her message clearly, concisely, and is also passionate about what they do. Passion's a huge part of determining whether or not you're going to be a good brand ambassador or not. I'm also going to look for someone that's digitally competent. In a world we live in today, it's vital to understand how the internet affects how we consume information and market ourselves to the world. So, back in my day, I would pick up the first copy of Transworld that I could find, but now I just, go to the mobile site and browse that. So It's really important to be digitally competent. Social media has a huge effect on you and how you market yourself. So social media alone has just changed the landscape for how we market ourselves and market companies. So the other thing I look for is someone that's really active on social media. And with that being said, you don't have to have 1 million followers to be seen, but follower size, it does influence our decision-making process. But more importantly, it's about the content that you produce. So, one post that has the proper @ mentions and hashtags by someone that, has a couple thousand followers is worth 100 times more than a single post from someone with 10 million followers but didn't tag us, right? So the quality of the content that you're producing is really, really important. So I would say, in summary, personality, passion, and digital competency are some of the most important things that I look for in a brand ambassador.
Yeah, a couple things I want to pull out of that. One, I like the word that you chose there, the way you described it, digital competency. That's a good summary. I know that holds people back sometimes. It's not like they purposely don't want to learn this stuff, but technology is improving and getting more complex every day, and you have to actually put effort into learning some of these new things, whether it's a video editing software or, like for me, I chose to learn podcasting, and it takes some time to build that digital competence. But I will tell you, if you're listening right now and you're like, oh, darn, I'm not digitally competent, that's okay. There are a lot of things. If you can at least get to the Google on your computer, type in how to do whatever, post to Instagram or edit a video or create a podcast, I mean, you will be able to figure that stuff out. So there's plenty of tools out there to help.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I wish that they taught a class in college called Googling 101. It would have been the one and only class I took.
Yeah, and you know what? Another one that I know some schools probably have this built in, but it definitely, when I went to my engineering school, this was definitely not a focus. One of the first things that you led with was like personality and these traits that surround your personality. And there are so many things that you can learn about how to present yourself and how to treat others properly that are not intuitive. And I wish that there was more preparation for that in school. Right now with my current commute, I've got about roughly 2 hours a day in a car, and I'm consuming audiobooks like it's the only thing I do. I read like a book a week and I'm obsessed with like self-help and personal development, which probably doesn't shock too many listeners, but gosh, I wish I'd have learned this stuff when I was like 15. I mean, it's just, holy cow. So I wish they had things like that built in somewhere. I don't know. Or if everybody had their own little personal mentor that could help out with this stuff, it'd be fantastic. But either way, I just wanted to highlight a couple of those things real quickly.
Yeah. No, I agree. Personality, it's something sometimes that you're just naturally, you're grown up a certain way and brought up a certain way, so you don't know any different. But I mean, there's simple things you can do. I mean, when I first get sponsorship requests, and I get them daily, multiple times a day, I can't tell you right away, yep, we're going to sponsor you. And, I've been waiting for your message my whole life. I can't say that, So I try to lead with something that.
Unless maybe it's McGrath. Maybe if Jeremy McGrath, you're right. Like, okay, we can figure something out.
I've been waiting. But I can't give that promise every time to everybody. So I try to deliver a message that is, both positive, but also, I don't want to. My number one ideal is, don't overpromise and underdeliver. So I'm always here. I'm open ears. I want to listen to what you have. If I know that it's going to fit within our strategy in some way, shape, or form. But the ability to just take a no sometimes. Some people, I've been yelled at just for telling someone that it's just unfortunate. It just doesn't fit within our strategy. And it just, I think it takes you kind of have to step outside and look at it from my perspective too. We are running a business, and I think a lot of people automatically assume when you look at us, a $14 billion company, that we're just throwing money around inside the office, which I just wish was true, because I wouldn't be working here. So, but we have set budgets, and we have a strategy we have to stick to. Sometimes it's not always clear and well defined to the outside consumer, but if it were super obvious, then we wouldn't have a competitive advantage, right? So some things we have to hold close to our hearts. So
mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody who's worked in a business environment where they have to manage a budget, you have a better understanding, but a lot of people haven't done that, right? And that's part of what we try to share in the show, is that, it is a business, and, the person that you're talking to, yes, $14 billion company, but it's one person as part of that entire structure, and that one person has a sliver of the budget to manage for themselves, and you don't have control over $14 billion. And by the way, that $14 billion is revenue, right?
Right.
What you have to deliver is profit, which means every dollar spent for marketing or sponsorship is lowering the profit, at least in a very direct sense, lowering the profit.
Right.
Now, ideally, that money, if you give $1 in sponsorship money, ideally it comes back in another $1 or another couple of dollars in sales, in which case, it makes sense. But that's not everybody understands that. I hear that a lot. They're like, oh, this is a whatever $1 billion company, and they should be able to give me this much of a discount. Like, oh, man, but if they did that for everybody, they're no longer going to be in business.
Yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could do that.
Yeah, that's truly the case. Everybody we've talked to on this show that makes decisions around sponsorship at a company, they say the same thing. Like, I wish I could sponsor everybody, except for maybe the yelling ones. Maybe not them. But but I completely understand that. You're a human as well. And you've got a heart, and you do want to help people, but you just can't help everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. Well, I did want to get into a little bit more of a specific question here. I'd love for you to share an example of maybe something that a racer has done that you've really appreciated in marketing your brand. And I almost feel like I need to take away the Ray Bullock example, because that might be cheating, but do you have an example of something like that where a racer you've been working with has just done something really well to market the brand?
Yeah, sure. So, if you're going to take Ray Bullock away from me, I guess I'll have to resort to...
Was that your example? Was that the one you had prepped?
Well, it's one of them. I mean,
let's start with that one to warm up. Let's just do it, because I do want to know more about it. Like, I want to know how you connected with Ray, and I want to know any other special things that he did.
Well, I think the relationship with the Bullocks, first of all, is just a really cool organic partnership we've had for a while. Ray Bullock is one of the few drivers that I sponsor from a factory side. So it really started with his uncle, Dean Bullock. And Dean is known in the off-road industry as one of the top rock crawlers, if you will. He thrives in areas like King of the Hammers and Johnson Valley. That man is just an animal, and he's known for that. So that's really where it started, was with Dean Bullock racing King of the Hammers. That was the first race that we actually ever had in the Wildcat Double X. So really cool event. I'd love to talk more about that some other time. But anyways, Ray came on board a lot of the desert racing stuff for us. He's really prevalent in works and does really well in that series, and also races, obviously, ran Vegas to Reno, clearly, but does a great job of posting for us and tagging us in his posts. And he's got a lot of really good connections too within the industry that help us cross promote. And so that's really important for us. So yeah, Ray's a great guy.
I did want to highlight something you just said there, which piqued my interest. Cross promote. That's huge. So I'll be fully transparent from the podcast standpoint. When I bring on a guest, the guest, if they're very well connected and they share the show, if a guest comes on and they actively promote the show, I see better response from a downloads perspective than someone who just has a large social media following, right? Because they get other people to start sharing the content, and then you're all of a sudden like, what in the world just happened here? So that's huge. That cross promotion piece, we don't honestly talk about that enough on this show, I don't think.
That is one of the number one things I look for, is people that also have already good existing sponsors. Cross promotion is by far the best way to get not only your name out, but the name of your other sponsors as well. So if you're not taking advantage of the partnerships that you already have, you're doing it wrong. You need to be connecting with your sponsors and connecting your sponsors with your other sponsors. And that's where it's really key, that leverage that you get from everybody. I mean, honestly, when you look at our social media followers compared to that of, call it Robbie Gordon, I mean, that dude's got millions of followers.
Right.
If it were just us and we say, no, we're going to just post the stuff about you for you, it would be worthless, because you get more value out in posting it. And then King Shocks posted, and then Fox, and then KMC Wheels picks it up. And, it's just those types of partnerships that really help you just launch yourself into space.
Yeah. And you know what? I just thought of an example, and I'm not sure if I've shared it on the show or not. I've kind of lost track a little bit. Like I was telling you at the pre-interview, depending on when I release this, it's going to be somewhere between like episode 113 and maybe 117. I don't know yet. But one of the things that I've realized just in talking to this is that there's been a lot of connections that's happened with this show. And so I'll use a specific example with Racing Addicts. So we talked about Jason Simmer in the pre-interview. So Jason, he owns Racing Addicts. Racing Addicts sponsors a show, and he is the one that put me in connection with you, Ben. So that's how we ultimately got on the phone together here. But Racing Addicts, when they were first talking about sponsoring the show to me, I was like, well, let me check around with some of my other sponsors, because I want to make sure that my existing base is comfortable with that. And after doing that process and then bringing Racing Addicts on board, now at least 3, maybe 4 of the show sponsors are now part of the Racing Addicts platform, which helps other people gain sponsorship as well. So that's toptopodium.com. They help now with resume creation for the Racing Addicts folks. Bold Racing has been a part of it, I think, from Axles. SolderWeld's been a part of it, and then I know Armor Coat has been in Neverlift Racing. So like, I didn't realize that was happening fully until it was already, I think, cemented. And I think as a result, we've all benefited, because I know I'm cross-posting their stuff, and I think they all are too.
Yeah. Yep, it's key, man. That's the secret right there. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that's good stuff. Well, so what else kind of drew you to the Bullocks? Or I mean, maybe it sounds like there's a legacy there, but was there anything else that drew your attention?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the legacy was there. Dean came over from the Arctic Cat side of things. He'd been racing Wildcats for years and years and years, and so it felt natural for us to start out. This was our first year for me really getting into the side-by-side racing industry, and even really Arctic Cat really wasn't doing too much in the desert racing stuff and desert racing scene really at all. So we were eager to get our feet wet, but didn't know really who to start with, because it was hard for us to go, I'd love to go to CJ Greaves or someone and say, yeah, let's, come on board. But, we don't have the millions of dollars to just throw at one guy. So it felt right to partner with these guys. They had an existing reputation that we knew was going to work.
Oh, it's very good. And I like that too, getting the insights into the strategy, because every company can make a different decision, right? No one dictates to you, you must sponsor several riders or you must sponsor one. They say, here's your budget, market our brand, right? That's what you get. So I think that's always interesting to get inside that and see.
Yeah.
Did you have any other examples, or did you want to build on the Ray Bullock example more?
Well, I'd say, we have all sorts of different sponsors. Even on the hunting side, Mike Stroff and from Savage Outdoors does a really great job for us, and the Bone Collector team does a really good job. Tony Stewart is huge. You guys are all probably familiar if you guys are dirt track fans. Donnie Schatz, he's got a huge follower. That dude just wins races left and right. But not only does he win, but he promotes our brand too. He's the owner of Arctic Cat snowmobiles and Textron Offroad side by side. So he owns the brand. He lives the brand, and that's something that we really appreciate. He's not a fake. He's a true enthusiast, not only on the track but off the track as well. So sometimes it's a hard lifestyle to pursue, but these guys they do a lot for us. And Tony Stewart's a unique example just because of the connections he's got and the resources he has already. Being so prestigious, it's we have access to his properties and just his personality, which is huge. We got a huge amount of leverage with him. So that's a really great partnership to have and be a part of.
Yeah, I do think anybody who's gone through the NASCAR circuit, whether it's Sprint Cup, Winston Cup, Monster Cup, whatever cup you want to call it, there's a serious sponsorship expectation at that level, and I feel like walking away from that, it's hard to not be somewhat business savvy if you can survive in that market. So even we've had some up and coming NASCAR drivers on the show. And it's been pretty shocking to hear the things that they've experienced and the things that they've learned about sponsorship through the NASCAR races.
Yeah.
Well, good. Everybody asks me, like, well, what do I avoid doing? And it's a very, very legitimate and very long list typically. But what I want to know from you, from your perspective, what are the pitfalls? What are the mistakes that you see all the time that racers could avoid? Like if they paid attention to a few things, what pitfalls can they avoid?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind maybe isn't something that they're doing that they shouldn't, but something that they should be doing that they're not. And we talked a little bit about it already, and it's that promoting their sponsors. It's important. That's the number one reason that we're partnering with you, is to get a return on our investment. And so if you're not, fulfilling that contractual obligation, if you've got a contract with someone to promote their brand, then it's bad for us, and it unfortunately leads sometimes to contract terminations. But I think that a lot of people will think, so say you're take for example a side-by-side rider. You got all these sponsors. You got, we'll call KMC wheels. You got a sticker on the side of your car for them, and Fox Shocks, you got a sticker on your car for them, and you just think like, okay, well, now that I got the sticker on the car, I can just race and hopefully I win, and maybe by winning I get these guys some exposure. Well, that's not always the case. If I were KMC Wheels, I would want, a shout out every once in a while, like, hey, an up close of the tires and wheels, like, look, this is what I run, and this is why I run it. And the same thing with Textron Off-Road. We want our vehicles being pictured, but also tagged, and not just that, but explaining it. People have to buy into the story and understand there's a reason that we're winning races, and there's a reason that we've got a proven platform now, and it's up to you guys to help communicate that message to the everyday rider. And so if you're not doing that, it hurts us. But when you are doing it, we can see it and we love it. And, we love to see you guys posting. We love seeing you post.
Yeah, and one thing I want to expand on that we learned about quite a bit in episode 111 that was featuring Ross Robinson. He does both UTV racing and the backcountry snowmobiling. He does a lot of product reviews. So he'll take products that he has been given to him or with a discount or whatever it may be, but sponsored products, and he'll go through and do a video and say, like, here's what I like, here's what could be improved, and that gets him a lot of credibility, not only from the sponsor because they're talking about the product, but also from the audience because you're also saying, like, well, here's the ways this will help you. Here's maybe the things that it isn't going to work as well for you. But hey, maybe this other alternative within their product line would be better. So I think that adds some credibility. I've also talked about this a couple of times on the show before, and I've had both Luke and AJ Lester on the show from Snow Tracks and Dirt Tracks TV. And they, I think, do a pretty good job of balancing that because they're sponsored in many cases by multiple OEMs, and they're still expected to do shootouts and product reviews. But part of that means they're going to have to say one product is likely better than the other or one feature is not good. But I think they do it in a way where you're like, okay, I have credibility because I feel like you're truly evaluating the product, but also you haven't really badmouthed or said anything that makes me think that you violated like trust or purposely made a brand look bad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Dirt Tracks, that's a good example. Dirt Tracks, those guys are really good guys. That as soon as I started watching their episode, the first thing that came to mind for an analogy would be Top Gear. Those guys are getting those cars from the manufacturers to review, but they're not. A lot of times, Dirt Tracks is probably on the lighter side because I've seen some Top Gear episodes and they'll tear a car apart and they've got nothing good to say about it. but Dirt Tracks does it in a tasteful way, and it gives you actually something to consider, and they pick apart the negatives, and that's good though, because we want to know too from a manufacturer standpoint. We don't launch a product and automatically assume that it's the greatest thing in the entire world. I mean, we want to believe that because we put so much time and effort into it, and we do believe that we've produced the best product that we possibly can. But there's no way that you can really know what you've made until you put it in a consumer's hand and let them actually put it through their paces, because there's just so many different variables to take into account. And so Dirt Tracks does a really good job of outlining those features and benefits in a really nice way. So we really like watching the reviews, and we read about it too. I mean, we read about everybody's product reviews.
Yeah, definitely. Now, one thing that you mentioned is like, yeah, we want to hear that. Do you have some sponsorships that you would target specifically for like an R&D development application or a prototype or just like early market feedback?
Believe it or not, we use our race team to do a lot of that product testing and feedback phase, because those guys are putting this vehicle through the extreme conditions. They're putting this thing through worse stuff than any normal sane person would do. So a lot of our racers get sent prototype parts under contract to test and develop some new things. So that's always good to have on hand. But it's not always even about racing. Like I mentioned, we have those hunting partnerships. Sometimes it comes down to just the tire and wheel that we pick. Sometimes tires hold up a lot better in certain climates and conditions. And when you're out hunting big game elk, in deep Colorado, you need a vehicle that's going to hold up to a pretty unique situation. So using our pro staff that way has been really important for our product development.
No, that's good. That's good. Is there anything else from the sponsorship tactics and strategies, or any little tips that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would just say, when you approach someone for a potential sponsorship, the first thing I would do is approach them with as much information as you can without being overwhelming. There's definitely a fine line between too much information and not enough. I like to see some things I like to see when someone reaches out to me is things like past race history, future race plans, like what series you're planning on racing in. I'd like to see kind of what sponsors you have already. And then obviously social media handles. That's the first thing I look at is who you are on social media, because that's who you are to the world. And so those few things I would stress as important. I get a lot of requests though, that just paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of just their whole life history. And I get that. That's fine. I'll get there, when we have our first call, but I don't need that information necessarily up front. It's better to have some clear, concise items to review, because I put that all in a review document, and we review that as a team. And so it's easier to sift through for us when it comes through clear and concise.
So one tip, and Ben, I want you to correct me if you don't agree with this, but one tip that I have for people is if you're typing out a proposal to somebody and you do want to highlight some things, avoid the paragraph technique, just like you said, because it's overwhelming. Especially if you're probably getting, let's say if it's 5 to 10 sponsorship proposals a day, you're probably, 80 to 200 emails a day on top of that. So
yeah,
if you throw in this massive paragraph, it's overwhelming, it's stressful, it's too much. I recommend bullets. If you've got a couple of clear points to make, bullet those things out. Hey, I'm really interested in building a relationship with you. Here are just a few things that I think will position me to help your brand grow. I'm active on social media. Check out my profile if you're interested. I won 16 million races. Vegas Reno champ. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah,
I just bullets are your friend. And this actually, if I get a lot of people that reach out as well to be a guest on this show, which is fantastic that people are excited and they want to come on the show. But I do get the paragraphs as well, and I don't get necessarily that many emails as you do for proposals and things like that. But I do get a lot of emails just throughout the day in general, and when I get a 3 or 4 paragraph thing, I'm like, I just can't right now. I just can't look at this right now. I cannot process any more information. And I think that's probably 10 to 20 fold more on someone who's processing these sponsorship apps.
Right. Well, it's those things that just get put on the back burner that, you have to, I carve out time in my day to take care of this stuff for sure. So, when it's overwhelming, it does get put, to the side as one of the last things to review while I can review some of the things that I know that I can get done quicker.
Right.
And review. So yeah, bullets are huge. Bullet points are good. And really it comes down to what everybody calls the elevator pitch. If you can say it in 30 minutes or 30 seconds, 45 seconds, then those key hot topics, I like to see that stuff.
Yeah. The elevator pitch, it works for job fairs. It works for, sponsorship proposals. Sometimes it even works for people if you're just trying to explain what you do. It's kind of nice to have those things. I actually have practiced a little bit of that, and I use the word practice on purpose, but I've practiced a little bit of that with the show, because sometimes people don't know what in the world it is, right? And I have to explain it. And if I can't explain it in 30 seconds, they're on to something else. And
sure.
So I recommend, it may sound cheesy, but write it down, practice it, call up your grandmother and have her listen to it. I don't know, do whatever. I think it's okay to, no, not only okay, I think it's good to have an elevators pitch.
Absolutely.
And if people don't know this, like if you haven't heard that term before, it comes from you need to be able to explain what you do and like explain your pitch during an elevator ride. So you're going from the first floor to the fourth floor, get it done because that person's getting off and you lost your opportunity.
Right.
That was good. I feel like we got some good information in Heat 2. Next, I want to do a condensed main event. I just want to ask you one question, and in fact, this is one of my favorite questions to ask, and I think it's pretty challenging too. But if you could sponsor anyone in the world, who would you choose and why?
And I'm going to have to say Ricky Carmichael.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier in the show, I really looked up to him when I was younger. I thought that guy just was an awesome rider. But now as I grow up and I get to see him professionally, the guy puts in work. He works for his sponsors. He works for what he has. He puts that effort in, and you can tell. You can definitely tell that he is someone that is dedicated to what he does. And then not only that, you put the guy in anything with a motor, you strap him to anything with a motor, and he's just naturally going to be good at it. So that's going to have to be my dream sponsor right there, Ricky Carmichael.
Yeah, I mean, he's on my list too of dream guests. You've already hit a number of my dream guests, right? McGrath is one of them for the same reason as you, like grew up watching him, and Carmichael, same thing. But one thing that you and I both just said is like looked up to him, right? That is a pretty big part, I think, in trying to pick the right person to represent your brand. Is you got to imagine other people, maybe it's kids, maybe it's adults, doesn't matter, but it's other people looking up to them for advice or for guidance or for some sort of trusting communication. And, maybe that turns into, I ride a Kawasaki dirt bike. I think they're great. And the person's like, well, if Ricky Carmichael can do it, I can do it. I don't even know what he's riding anymore, honestly. I probably should have known that. But he used to ride Kawasaki. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, Kawasaki. He's not really with an OEM, I would say.
Right.
Suzuki would probably be his.
Yeah.
If you will.
I think he used to ride Kawasaki. Am I making this up?
Yeah. No. Yeah. He did.
Okay.
I mean,
good.
Always they go through all the colors, right?
Right. No, that's good, and I appreciate you sharing that as well. Well, we're going to kind of wrap things up, though, now. It's been fun, but it's time. So we're at the finish line now. If you could just kind of summarize one point for the audience, if they forgot everything else that you talked about today, just that one thing, what would it be?
Oh, man, one thing? Take care of your sponsors. Cross-promote. That's key. And just stay on the gas, man. Never quit. Keep going. Keep moving forward.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I'm glad that Jason was able to connect us. Again, this is hearing it directly from the person who makes decisions about sponsorship at a company, I think is phenomenal. It's hard to get a better fit as a guest on this show. So I'm glad that the audience had an opportunity, but I know this takes time out of your day as well. So I appreciate you giving that time to us.
Anytime. I'm happy to be here, man.
All right. Well, if people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way for that to happen?
I would say the best way to connect with me is to connect with the brand. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Textron Offroad. We see everything that you guys post. If you hashtag us or at mention us, I see it all. I browse it. I spend a lot of time browsing forums and social media. So don't take that for granted. I see you guys. I'm watching you.
That's
and if you're
awesome.
racing our product, keep that up too. Love to see it, man.
Right on. Yeah, I get so excited when an OEM likes one of my posts. I put up a picture of my Arctic Cat snowmobile, and Arctic Cat liked it. I was like, yeah, woohoo, And
It's all
it's good stuff. Well, hey, thank you again for doing this. I'm going to leave you with this, though. Have fun and ride safe.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Be sure to subscribe. That way you don't miss upcoming guests. And then follow us on social media. We're primarily on Facebook and Instagram with a little bit of Twitter mixed in there, and actually LinkedIn as well. Pay particular attention to our Facebook page, though, because that's where we go live. We just featured Carla and Casey Sims. We're going to keep doing these live episodes twice a month, so check it out. To get insider access to upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. It is a group that is intended for you to go into and ask questions about sponsorship. There's people there that can help you. I can help you. Head there right away. Special thanks goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Neverlift Racing, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, Crash Addict Industries, and then I also want to shout out some of our other partners, GSP XTV Axles, NBRP Power Sports, NBRP Exhausts, HMK USA, and Subboy Traction. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.